Well, we got through the 12 keys lecture, and one of the very last things that I pointed out to you during that lecture was that those 12 keys began and ended with marketing. And the bottom line is they have to be able to find you. They being people who are searching for something on the internet. They have to be able to find you. Okay? And so I explained last week that I think that's so important that probably the best thing I can do for you is talk about what businesses can do to make it so potential customers can indeed find you. And so we're going to talk about several topics related to this, but the first one that we'll spend several class periods on is search marketing. Search marketing, and that means various kinds of marketing efforts that are conducted on search engines or with the help of search engines. All right, let's get going.
Now, search marketing has three components. I want to briefly mention each one of them right now. Search engine optimization, or sometimes it's called SEO, has the goal to rank high in organic search results. You're trying to do things to your website so when people search for whatever your website's about, you will be, your listing will have a high ranking in what are called the organic search results. If you don't know what those are, I'm going to explain in just a few minutes. Okay, the second component of search marketing is called paid placement. Sometimes that's called paid inclusion, and its goal is to rank high in organic search results, right? Only you're paying for it. And Google doesn't have that. You can't pay Google to rank high in its organic search results. Another way of saying that is the unpaid search results that Google has. Yahoo has two versions of that. At least they did the last time I knew. I'm not sure what Bing has. I am not really too concerned about Yahoo and Bing for this introductory lecture because Google dominates the market so. The third one is called paid search or pay for performance or pay-per-click. A lot of times you see it abbreviated PPC advertising. And its goal is to convert searchers on search engines to visitors to your website via sponsored links on the search engine results pages. Now, here's where you're going to learn what organic search results are. This is a page of search results from Google. And what I searched for was the search term cheap textbooks. You can see it up here in the search bar. Okay? And when you search, you get a whole list of results, right? And if you'll look at the results closely, you'll notice that there's something different about the first four results here. They have the word ad in front of them, and those are paid search results. Paid search results. At the bottom of the previous slide, I gave the name of Google's paid search result program. It's been tremendously successful for the company. It's called AdWords. AdWords. I haven't checked lately to see what the percentage of Google's revenues that come from AdWords is, but the last time I knew it made up a very substantial proportion of that revenue. Okay? So those are paid search results or paid per click results. they're called pay-per-click advertisements because the advertiser doesn't pay Google anything unless a searcher clicks on their result. Okay? And I'll just mention here, sort of as a teaser, that where a company ranks in these paid results depends on how much the company is willing to pay Google. Companies bid on keywords or key phrases like cheap tickets. And in this case, textbooks.com paid the most. Said they'd pay the most per click. All right? Then following the ones that say ad, right, you have another list that may go on page after page after page. This search term brought back over 12 million results. Okay, I did not put my search term in parentheses, in quotes, I'm sorry. I didn't put it in quotes, so it's looking for both the word cheap and textbooks, so that 12 million is probably a little bit suspect as far as cheap textbook goes. It's just that many pages Google's found with the words cheap, either cheap or textbook in it. But these results that go on down here for page after page after page are called the organic search results. And these listings result from Google's ranking algorithm. Google has a very complex formula. We'll talk about it more later too. But they have a formula that looks at a company's website and some other things that we'll talk about. And based on a scoring technique that Google has, they rank companies here. Okay? So these are the organic search results. They're the ones that follow the paid search results. It's very easy on Google to distinguish between the two. The way Google is doing it right now is the pay-per-click ads, the AdWord ads, have the word ad in front of them. The organic search results, sometimes they're called the natural search results, don't have the word ad in front of them. And I might mention that Google regularly changes the look of its search results, but these components pretty much stay the same. As I'm recording this, which is clear back in February of 2016, Google just made a change from having ads here and over on the right side of the page. Google quit putting them on the right side of the page for whatever reason. Okay? But Google regularly changes that. By regularly, I mean every year or so. But what's important for you is that there are pay-per-click ads, Google AdWord ads, and the organic ads. Okay?
Pay-per-click versus SEO. Pay-per-click ads can be very, very effective in driving traffic to your website, but they can be quite costly, and I might add they can be quite costly quickly. All right? So particularly small businesses, but any business, if they use pay-per-click, needs to understand what they're doing, how it works, and learn how to control their costs. So since they're costly, an important companion to pay-per-click is taking steps to obtain a high rank within a search engine's natural or organic search results. And steps that you take to do that are called search engine optimization. And if you can rank high in organic search results, if you can achieve that, you can save an e-business thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars in advertising, and you can produce synergistic results when combined with pay-per-click ad campaigns. In other words, the pay-per-click and SEO can work together to produce even better results than either one individually. All right? So we'll talk about pay-per-click later on, but right now I want to talk about search engine optimization, SEO. And to do that, I need to talk about search engine rankings.
Have you ever tried to drive in the fog? I've driven in fog that looks like this, and it's scary. You try to see what's ahead of you, but you never know, right? And trying to understand search engine ranking can seem like trying to see the horizon through the fog, trying to see what's ahead. You look, and just when you feel like you're beginning to understand the basics of what's up there, a gust of wind comes along, changes the scene, and the outline you thought you saw vanishes. Understanding search engine rankings like that, particularly with Google. Google's always changing either big or little things having to do with how it ranks websites in its search engine results, in its organic search results.
And one reason for that phenomenon with search engine ranking is that the business of search engine rankings is a lot different now than it used to be, which is to say it changes. The business of search engine rankings change. And with respect to Google, for example, what were considered best practices several years ago can get a website blacklisted. That means taken off of certain search engines today. Okay, so things are always changing. And I know Google, I will tell you Google is always changing. So, if things are always changing, can you understand search engine ranking? And the answer is, still, you can understand at least the basics of rankings, and that should help attract people to your website. And what those basics include are answers to questions like this. What is search engine ranking all about? Is it random, or is there organization to it? And the answer is yes, there is. How does a website get higher rankings? Understanding that can help you attract more people to your website. And then also you need to understand, answer the question, does one have to pay someone to increase their search engine ranking? And I will tell you now, you do not have to do that with Google, at least. Perhaps you have to pay to increase your ranking with Baidu. That's what I understand. But with Google, you don't have to do that. And so what we're going to talk about, since Google rules in my world, is how can you increase your search engine ranking, particularly on Google?
As I mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on the market leader when we talk about search engine optimization. And the market leader by far is Google. Google rules, and it has for years. I've taught this class since really before Google did rule, but once Google came about, it just started ruling, and it's ruled more and more. And the last time I checked, Google had a 65 to 70% share of the search market. When people think of search, they don't think of Yahoo, they don't think of Bing. For the most part, they think of Google. So, we're going to focus on Google's approach to ranking. And all we're going to get here is an introduction. And since I'm recording this video early in 2016, if you listen to it several months later, you can be sure that somewhere along the line, Google has changed something just a little bit. They've tweaked their ranking algorithm, but we're focusing on the basics, and the basics pretty much have remained there for all the years that I've been teaching about this. By the way, you remember at the beginning of my 12 Keys lecture, I introduced you to a man named Dr. Ralph Wilson. Ralph had that website called Web Marketing Today, and for about 15 years, he basically published information about web marketing. It was a very popular website, and back in 2012, he sold that site. But one of the things that always impressed me is that he understood this business of search engine optimization so well that his site ranked highly for what I think is a very important term. Pull up your browser. I think you can do it in any of the search engines, but pull up Google sometime and search for the term web marketing. You might want to put it in quotes just so you have web marketing rather than web and marketing on there. Web or marketing, excuse me. Search for that, and you'll notice that toward the top of the list of organic search results, if not at the very top, is his publication, Web Marketing Today. That site is designed so well that I'd say at least for the last decade, and perhaps even longer, it is so well optimized for search engine optimization that it has ranked at the very top, or maybe number 2 in the search results for web marketing. A very, very commonly searched term for people in business. I mention that because most everything that I know about search marketing, I learned from working with Dr. Wilson. Okay? So we're going to focus on Google's approach to search engine ranking.
The way it was when the internet was young, search engines just weren't too smart. When the internet was young, search engines weren't too smart, and all you had to do was repeat a keyword dozens of times on its web page, and that page would almost magically shoot to the top of the rankings. That's all you had to do. Today, things are different. Today, doing that is considered search engine spamming, and it can result in a website being removed from a search engine's index. So you used to be able to trick search engines. You can't trick them anymore. In fact, they're so smart that if you try to trick them, they usually will find out, and that will mean they'll yank you from their search engine result. That's the way it was. Now, the way it is now is that fundamentally search engine ranking is based on 2 factors. These are really important. You need to remember these. The keywords on a web page, and by the way, when we talk about search engine ranking, we're talking about the ranking of a web page. So the first of those 2 factors is the keywords on that web page. And the more focused and clear the content is on the web page, and the clearer that content is indicated in the page titles, meta tags, headings, and body text, all those things are HTML stuff, the greater are the chances of ranking high for the main keywords on the web page. So the first of the 2 fundamental things that determine ranking is the keywords on a web page, and the more focused and clear the content is on that web page, the greater are the chances of ranking high for the main keywords on that web page. Then the second fundamental factor for determining ranking is the pattern of links links to a domain name. That's incoming links, other websites that link to you. And it's the quantity and the quality and the context of incoming links to a domain name that are very important, particularly with Google's ranking system. So fundamentally, ranking is based on two factors. Remember these: the keywords on a web page, and the more focused and clear the content is, the greater the chances of ranking high, and then the pattern of incoming links. And Google looks at the quantity, the quality, we'll explain what that means, and the context, we'll explain what that means too, of incoming links to a domain name. Let's talk more about this, more about the way it is now. What Google does is it uses a complex algorithm based on those two main factors, keywords, incoming links, along with a few less important ones, to determine which sites are on top for any keyword search. Okay, when you type into Google a particular search, by the way, I'm using the term keyword here, but we also could say phrase. It could be a group of words that you tie in. Okay? So Google uses a complex algorithm based on those two factors, along with a few others, to determine which sites rank high. And what I do on the next slides, now they're very wordy, and I'm going to review them now, but I encourage you to review them in detail later. What I'm going to do is summarize Google's explanation of that process. Okay? So as you look at these next slides, you think, oh my gosh, there's a lot of information there. Well, I put it there because right now I don't believe you can access it. You can't access Google. And I thought you needed to read it. And so it's rather wordy, but it allows me to talk about the things that are important. So here's how Google explains its ranking process.
So here's how Google explains its search ranking algorithm. By the way, I got this from Google probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 2011, 2012. So I would assume that some of the numbers mentioned in it might be larger now, maybe smaller, but I'd say they're probably larger. So don't get hung up on them. Get hung up on what Google says in general about the technology. They say the software behind our search technology conducts a series of simultaneous calculations requiring only a fraction of a second. Traditional search engines rely heavily on how often a word appears on a web page. We, meaning Google, use more than 200 signals, including our patented PageRank algorithm, to examine the entire link structure of the web and determine which pages are most important. We then conduct hypertext matching analysis to determine which pages are relevant to the specific search being conducted. By combining overall importance and query-specific relevance, we're able to put the most relevant and reliable results first. Google's algorithm is called PageRank Technology. It's kind of a play on the word page. If you don't know, Google's founders are Sergey Brin and Larry Page. They were PhD students at Stanford University, and they developed this ranking algorithm. Here's what they say about their PageRank technology. PageRank reflects our view of the importance of web pages by considering more than 500 million variables and 2 billion terms. Pages that we, that is Google, believe are more important pages receive a higher rank and are more likely to appear at the top of search results. PageRank also considers the importance of each page that casts a vote, as votes from some pages are considered to have greater value, thus giving the link page greater value. What that means is when they say cast a vote, that means pages that link to the page in question. The higher ranked a page is that links to your website, the higher that will rank your website. You need to read through this to understand a little bit more, and I will talk more about this later on. To continue, Google says, we have always taken a pragmatic approach to helping improve search quality and create useful products, and our technology uses the collective intelligence of the web to determine a page's importance. In other words, they see who links to your website, and if it's a bunch of important websites, they'll say that your website is more important than if it were unimportant rinky-dink sites that linked to yours.
Hypertext matching analysis, or their keyword analysis. Our search engine also analyzes page content. They look at the content on a web page. However, instead of simply scanning the page for page-based text, and they said that can be manipulated by site publishers through meta tags. We'll talk about meta tags. They're not as important for Google, but they are important for Yahoo and probably for Baidu. Instead of simply scanning for page-based text, our technology analyzes the full content of a web page and factors in or considers fonts, subdivisions, and the precise location of every word. They look at everything. We also analyze the content of neighboring web pages to ensure, that means on your website, other web pages on your website. We also analyze the content of neighboring web pages to ensure the results returned are the most relevant to a user's query. There's where I got that information. I put the link there. As I understand it, you can't go to that link, but it's there. So that's what Google does, which leads us to the next topic, and that is, how do they gather all that information? And that leads me to the topic, a topic that I call arachnobotics. Arachnobotics. It's taken from the word arachnid. And arachnids, you might remember from your biology classes, are spiders, right? To understand how to best prepare web pages for indexing by Google, you need to understand how a search engine robot or spider functions. The software that Google sends out to crawl over the web is called by many a spider, a search engine spider. They also are called robots, bots, search bots, right? But it's kind of fun to call it arachnobotics, right? And there's a little graphic, you can look at it on your handout, of the kinds of procedures that are written into the software of search engine spiders. A web spider, or some of them call it the web crawler, is software that automatically browses the web and keeps a copy of visited pages in its database. So not only is it going around the web and looking for the information, but it's keeping copies of web pages. So you have to understand how these things work, or a little bit about how they work, to understand how to best design, how to best prepare your web pages. Google calls its spider Googlebot. Googlebot. And what Googlebot does is examine a web page's HTML code, and if it can interpret it, it keeps a record that's tied to keywords and other information for others to follow to the website. So when people search for keywords on Google search engine, they find web pages that feature that keyword. And if it's your web page they locate, they being the searchers, you're one step closer to achieving your desired results. And that's a shopper and hopefully a sale, hopefully a buyer, hopefully one of those very valued return customers. Okay? Now, if you look ahead in your slides, you'll see a lot more text that I'm going to read. Back a few years ago, Dr. Wilson and I wrote an article that was published in the Journal of Direct Data and Digital Marketing Practice. That's the academic journal of the Institute for Direct Marketing. That's a worldwide but particularly European Union organization for direct marketing. And I was trying to decide how to talk about this, and I decided the best thing to do would be just give you that text, a little bit of the text about this. So bear with me while I read some of the things that Dr. Wilson and I wrote in this article related to search engine optimization and understanding search engines. Web pages can be optimized. By that I mean properly prepared for visits from search engine spiders like Googlebot. And if you do that well, a spider will index that web page according to the desired keywords and phrases. In other words, if you design your web page well, the Googlebot will know what it's about, and it will index that page according to things that you think are important. But to understand how to get a web page properly indexed, you have to learn to, I'll call it think. You have to learn to think like a spider thinks. And what that means is empathizing with the job that a spider has to perform. Think about what those web spiders have to do. Now, granted, they're just a software program, but they have to go to one web page after another at the speed of light, trying to figure out what each web page is really all about. So they go to a web page, try to figure out what it's about, go to another web page, try to figure out what it's about, go to another one, and they do that all day long, rushing at the speed of light. And they do that day in and day out, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, in an effort to examine the billions of web pages that are out there. So the web spiders, even though they are just software, they have a big job to do. And they are just software, so they're programmed to look for certain things. And if you don't know how to prepare your web pages for these bots, they might not find what you want them to find, right? You know, Dr. Wilson and I have often thought that if the spider were a person, you might even start to feel sorry for it and want to do whatever was possible to reduce the pain, to ease the pain. It has such a job to perform. And, you know, you can do that. To accomplish this, webmasters, whoever designs your web page, right, they need to provide spiders with clues written clearly on their web page. So properly designed web pages that make a spider's job easier include clues for those spiders. In other words, they include the kinds of things that Google's technicians or programmers have told the spiders to look for. Okay? And keywords are some of those clues. However, those keywords have to be carefully chosen so that the spider can easily determine what the page is about. For example, okay, assume that a search engine encounters two web pages with the keywords that are listed on the next slide. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of confusing a spider versus making it easy for a spider to determine what a web page is all about. Let's go to the next slide. How do we leave the right clues for spiders? Here's page A. Page A's keywords say aspirin, Advil, headache, and arthritis. The main keywords on web page B say aspirin, kerosene, sparkling water, and quantum physics. So think about a spider. It comes to page A. Will it know what that page is about? It comes to page B. Will it know for sure what that's about? Well, a spider would have little difficulty divining the content of page A. It's about pain relievers for people with headaches and arthritis. On the other hand, I'm not sure what page B is about. You know, the spider would just be confused because aspirin and kerosene and sparkling water and quantum physics don't have a lot to do with each other. I suppose you could take an aspirin with sparkling water. You wouldn't want to do that with kerosene, would you? But yeah, you see the point, right? A is very clear for the spider. B would confuse the spider. Okay, let's go on. Talk about more about leaving. More from this article Dr. Wilson and I did. So it's the webmaster's job to leave abundant clues for search engines so there's no question what the web page is all about. And the more diverse your keywords are on a web page, the lower that web page will tend to rank for any of those keywords. On the other hand, though, if the search engines find lots of clues to the web page topic, and all those clues seem to mesh, that means they all seem to go together, then the search engine is pretty sure, rather sure, of what that web page is about, and they'll tend to rank the page higher for the topic you want it to rank higher for. Okay? For the specific topic. So you leave abundant clues. You don't want those clues to be diverse. You want them to be focused for each web page so that the search engine spider can be pretty certain about what the web page deals with. Well, this proper preparation then of a web page for spider visits, that means providing the right clues for spider visits, requires an understanding of how a search engine determines what is important on a particular page. In other words, it requires an understanding of how the web bot or the spider, search engine spider, looks at a web page, analyzes a web page. And that first requires a basic understanding of the appropriate and most effective content for the HTML title tag, the description meta tag, the headings in your HTML code, the body text, the hyperlinks text, and hyperlink URLs. So even though we're not trying to make us programmers, to be a good marketer, you have to understand what kind of content you want to put into the code that makes up your web page. Okay? Now, search engines used to look at keyword meta tags, hidden comments, alt tags under graphics Most don't bother with those these days. I can't speak for Baidu for sure, whether it does or not. But I want to discuss keyword meta tags for reasons that are going to become apparent. And then there are other significant, less significant design points to consider, like keywords associated with boldface. Perhaps the spider might think that's important, or italics, or the file names of images. We'll mention those. So this fairly well wraps up part 1 of this search engine or search marketing discussion that I want to do. We're going to move to part 2, but I need to tell you that I'm giving you a nerd alert, providing a caution, right? And that caution says there's techie talk ahead. I have to talk about some technology stuff, but don't panic. It's fairly simple stuff, and it may look like programming, but it's really marketing. It may look like programming, but it's really marketing. Okay? So that ends part 1.